I'm Christy Howard. I'm here with NASCA. I'm actually playing the part of Kayla Leslie, who I think some of you may know that have participated on previous calls with her. She's at home on maternity leave, cuddling a cute little baby girl right now, so we're kind of all envious of that. But I wanted to welcome particularly those who are state PIOs and communication directors. We do have like a small forum for NASCA that we're kind of trying to jumpstart and kick off a little bit more, which I'll talk more about that later in the call today. But as you all know, we were hoping to kind of leverage Spring Conference as another time to connect this group here with NASCA, with obviously all the interruptions that COVID-19 has kind of brought to NASCA and our members and all of our lives. We still want to with you all and with our media partner at Route 50, we have a representative here who's going to share some insight on relationships with the media during crisis, as well as give you all as kind of our NASCA members some time to connect and do some idea shares and swaps. So it's going to be a pretty interactive webinar, not just presentation only. So I'm kind of move through here. As you all know, I just kind of mentioned that Route 50 is our media partner here, and we will all kind of have a more formal introduction of Alisha, who's joining us today, as we go through a couple of housekeeping slides first. We are highly encouraging participation today, so if you're able to unmute later in the call and kind of chat with your peers and with us, that's fantastic. We're going to try a couple of little interactive things at the beginning here, just to kind of really honestly to experiment a little bit with our own Zoom account. But we also want to make sure that we know who you all are. It looks like most of you have logged in with your name, but if you have a minute and want to kind of update what your state is that you're kind of representing or your organization, that would be great. But we can also kind of mention that when you get to the round robin portion here and talk a little bit more. But we will ask you all to mute your lines during the beginning, the presentation portions, but you can unmute yourselves, or we're happy to unmute you, or direct any questions to chat if you want as well, for us to kind of ask questions of the group. We also have the other fun features here on Zoom, which I think some of you are probably familiar with, some of you may not be, but we have little thumbs up features and nods and raising hands and stuff that we're going to experiment with a little bit here, and you're welcome to experiment with those throughout the webinar as well. But before we do that, kind of what we're looking at on our agenda is we're going to start with a little bit of like the interactive experimentation, if you will, at the beginning. We're going to do some round robins, get to know who's on our call, kind of who's participating today. And then we will turn it over to Alisha and let her do a short presentation for us, and there'll be some moderated conversation at the end, so you'll have some time to dig a little deeper into her content and any questions you may have of her, and how to navigate this interesting time that we are playing in. So first, we have a couple of raise your hand questions. I want you to find the raise your hand here. You should see it in your like your participant window at the bottom. You'll kind of see a screenshot of it. But our question here is, if you have put out any tips for keeping your video conferencing secure to your staff, is that like a thing that you all have been busy communicating? Is that something that your department has been the one kind of like taking the lead on that communication, or is that something that you have not? So if you have, and you can find the raise your hand feature and just kind of raise your hand there. We have a couple of people. Okay, great. Thank you. Looks like we have 3 that have done that so far. And then you can, let me clear it, okay. And then our next question here is to raise your hand if you have done any communication on Administrative Professionals Day. So just kind of curious if other people are communicating anything kind of more of the happy space and not all COVID, COVID, COVID and telework. Does anybody have anything to dedicate something to stuff like that in their office? Okay, looks like we have one. Great, thank you. And then I'm going to move on to a quick poll here. See if I can multitask here. Okay, so the next question we have here is, where are you currently working from? I know we have many that are working from home and teleworking. We also have many that actually are in a closed office setting. There's a couple people that, they're just, the office is open, but they just not allowed visitors. And then I know there's some people who maybe you're working one day in the office and the rest at home, or vice versa. So it looks like, no surprise here, that almost everybody is kind of working from home. We have maybe a couple of select states that are still working in the office. So very interesting to me, who has been home for 40-something days now, long to be outside. So thank you. And then let's see. And then I have one more poll for us. Have you sent communication to staff offering tips and resources on working from home, the whole telecommuting experience? Hold on. Okay. And this is me struggling here. Okay. There we go. So have you sent communications to state staff about offering tips and resources for working from home? Okay. Okay, great. I think we have a little bit more of a mix here. All right. All right, well, I think I have one more question here. And this is just something to kind of post in the chat. What is and there's a typo here, I'm sorry, but what's the best Twitter or LinkedIn profile that you have been following right now to kind of keep you up to date on the different issues that are currently surrounding us in this crisis? So you can actually just kind of post those in the chat as you think of them for others to kind of share and explore as the webinar continues. And then from here, we're going to kind of jump into a round robin. I want to get a good feel of who's actually on the call. So if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to call some of you all out, and then if you wouldn't mind telling us what state you are with and kind of your role in communications with that state. And then you can just kind of either pick one of these questions here, or you can expound on one of the questions that we just discussed to kind of get the ball rolling on a better idea of who all has joined us today. Let's see. I mentioned myself, Christy Howard. I'm here with NASCA, and then I'm going to go ahead and introduce the others here in the NASCA team who are participating today. We have Jamie Rogers, who is actually our deputy director, is on the line with us, as is Pam Goins, who is our new executive director. And if you all want to just introduce yourselves super quick, then we can move around the rest of the room, if you will.
Thanks.
Thanks, Christy. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, this is Jamie Rogers from NASCA. I know we talked to a couple of you guys, I guess it was a couple of months ago when we were talking about some more stuff for PIOs and communication directors. And thanks for letting us role model a couple of those new interactive sessions for Zoom. And Christy, thanks for hosting us. And Alicia, thanks for being here today.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's Pam Goins. As Christy mentioned, I'm relatively new with the NASCA team, just a few weeks into my role here, but super excited to hear your conversation today and really see how you're assisting during the pandemic.
Okay, great, thanks. Alisha, I'm going to skip over you because we'll do a little more of a formal introduction here in a minute, but Caleb, can you tell us kind of what state you're with and your role in communications for that state, and maybe follow up with one of these questions here?
Yes, of course. So I figured I'd turn my video on. I was eating lunch. I didn't think anybody wanted to see that. So not that you want to see this anyway, but You're stuck with it. So I am from Michigan, and ours is called the Department of Technology Management and Budget. So we handle quite a few things. And what made me want to participate in this discussion? A number of reasons. One, we're kind of stuck is probably a poor word, but we've been conversing with the same, 5 people every single day. And it's nice to get out there and see what everybody else is probably experiencing some of the same challenges and probably has some good ideas for how to overcome some of those challenges, and just and really just hear from the different perspectives that we have on the line.
Perfect, thanks. Courtney, let's skip to you now. Unmute you. Maybe you're just on your computer. Okay, let me, Leah?
Yes.
There you go.
I'm Leah Svensson from South Dakota. My official title is Special Projects Coordinator for the Bureau of Administration, but I'm also the PIO for the Bureau of Administration, as well as on the team of PIOs for the whole state. We're one of the few states that has not had a mandatory shutdown. Our governor has kept everything open and all the options open for business owners to do as they wish. However, she has sent everyone home to work from home that works for her. So leading by example, I guess, is how we're putting it. I'm also on the COVID team, so I've been out at the Emergency Operations Center quite a bit and helping them with messaging that's going out to the entire state. Been really busy, but South Dakota has one of the lower caseloads of it. So whatever we're doing, we must be doing okay doing.
Sure, well, welcome. Courtney, let's try you again now. Let's see. I saw you unmute for a second. There we go. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm working from home, so I had to go chase the dog that was tearing apart the house, trying to eat a fly. I am with the state of Kansas, and I work for their Department of Administration. So currently, all of our media contacts are being funneled through the governor's office, and she's doing daily press conferences, and our Department of Health and Environment is joining her on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And then they're bringing our other agency secretaries in, depending on what topic they're addressing for the day, whether it be our unemployment claims or something going on with our state hospitals or corrections institutions. All of our PIOs are also in rotation, very much like our previous speaker said, going and doing different rotations with our Department of Emergency Management on that whole team, and just to help the 3 people who are permanently stationed with our emergency management, just so they don't get so burned out. We have different people that are going into the Emergency Operations Center to help them out, and also have virtual people working from home.
Okay, great, thank you. And then Monica.
Hello, I'm Monica Hassan. I'm in California with the California Department of General Services. I am the Deputy Director of the Office of Public Affairs here. As you guys might know, we were one of the early states to have a shelter in place. Our governor does press conferences daily around noon. We've been we've been swamped. Normally during times of disaster, I'm actually part of the comms team for disasters, but because my department's responsible for procurement and leasing and facilities and stuff like that, I've had to stay at DGS to handle our media stuff because it's blown up. As you may know, we recently put through a contract for $1 billion for face masks. That's been very controversial. We also have been renting out hotels and other spaces for kind of like excess hospitals or places for the homeless. So as you can imagine, we're just getting hit left and right with media inquiries and PRAs. Our biggest challenge with the media right now is we don't actually get to respond to the majority of the inquiries, which is very frustrating. It's understandable though, because in California, anytime there's a disaster, big or small, we go with the one team, one fight phrase. So everything is coordinated through the governor's office and the Joint Information Center before we can respond. But as you can imagine, they're just inundated with so many inquiries that the majority of the time they can't even open the ones that we're sending over to get permission to report on. But we're doing our best, and we're just hoping our relationships aren't strained with the media right now, because we pride ourselves in having good relationships with our reporters. So that's been the biggest challenge over here.
Sure. Great, thank you. All right, Samantha. You with us, Samantha? I think I just unmuted you. Oh, okay. So you're kind of going through chat here, but she's saying they're filtering everything through the governor's office as well. Well, thank you everybody for kind of just sharing, kind of get us kicked off. We are going to move on now to introduction of our guest speaker here, Alisha Powell Gillis. She's a senior editor at Route 50, where she's responsible for programming live and online content, events content, moderating panel discussions, soliciting, editing, and writing the analytical pieces, and overseeing the annual Navigator Awards program. Before she joined there, she was the Director of Community Impact at the Urban Libraries Council, and she works to connect, sorry, all these other pop-ups that of course are popping up now. The Urban Libraries Council, where she worked to connect urban public libraries to critical issues in state and local government and lead event programming. Before her time there, she served the nation's governors for nearly a decade at NGA, the National Governors Association, where she specialized in Homeland Security, emergency management, and cybersecurity issues. She holds a degree in Global Security Studies from Johns Hopkins University and a bachelor's degree in Political Science from Hofstra University. And with that, I would like to go ahead and pass the spotlight over to you, Alisha, and let you kick it off.
Great. So, Christy, does that mean I can control the slides, or?
I still have control of them.
Okay.
I can give you control if you want them, which
No,
is easier.
no, you take control. I just wanted to make sure. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to join you today. I'm really excited to chat with you all, and honestly, I just want this to be as interactive as possible. So I'll spend a few moments talking, but again, I really want to talk with you, not just at you. So Christy pretty much gave the spiel of who I am, Alisha Powell Gillis, senior editor at Route 50. Just to underscore the fact that I'm actually very new to media. I had not been in media previous to my role at Route 50, which I took the role at the end of August last year, but I've been learning very quickly. And then again, to underscore the point that I'm very familiar with state government at my time with the National Governors Association, and I'm intimately very familiar with emergency management, crisis management, as that was the main component of my portfolio during my time at NGA. So we can go to the next slide, Christy. So I'm just curious, and feel free to go ahead and unmute yourselves if you want, but I'm just curious, how many of you are familiar with Route 50? Ah, raising hands, I like it. People learn. You can raise your hands too if you want to do that. Okay. No, okay, great. Actually, thank you. So one of you is familiar, so I'll give a quick overview of Route 50. So we are a state and local digital publication. We are part of what's called the Government Executive Media Group. So Route 50 is one of the 4 brands under that umbrella. Our sister publications are GovExec, which focuses on the federal government, NextGov, which focuses on federal technology issues, and Defense One, which covers national defense and security. So Route 50 started as a channel on GovExec, and then 5 years ago, the company made a decision to make it its own standalone publication, citing a need in the field to try to do to try to do more connecting of people, particularly government officials, because that is our primary audience across all of our brand is government, a desire to see the news differently for the public sector and the state and local side. Fun little fact, last week was Route 50's 5th year anniversary, and we have seen record traffic numbers in the last few months. So in terms of what our traffic looks like, we average approximately 200,000 page views a month and about a dedicated subscriber base of about 100,000. And the main topics we cover are finance management, infrastructure, tech and data, public safety, health and human services. In addition to the coverage you see on our site, we produce ebooks, which are compilations of our past stories. We do special reports on emerging or new issues. And you can go to the next slide too, Christy. We are also very heavily involved in the events business. That's actually a lot what I do. And in a typical year, which we all know this is definitely not, we host anywhere from 10 to 12 live events, 8 to 12 digital events, and we participate in association conferences like NASCA, either reporting from them, moderating, or speaking on panels. And this year we will be shifting completely to digital. So if there are any questions about those events and if you want to get plugged in, please feel free to let me know. But again, to underscore the point that Route 50 is unique in the fact that our target audience are government officials. So let's go ahead to the next slide. So I think the crux of why you are here is obviously, so what is the media mindset in crisis? I know you all are in different places with media, so try to pull back a little bit of the curtain behind the mysterious media, I guess, a little bit, to just give you a sense of where we are all coming from and what our motivating factors are. So Christy, you can hit the next one. You may have to hit it twice. Yes, go ahead and hit it one more time. Perfect. So the media is such an all-encompassing term. I don't think we all operate in the same form or fashion. I think you all know this, but there is, I guess, a common instinct that drives all of what we're doing. Disasters and crises this is not news to you, are obviously massive shocks to the system. And with those shocks, it creates excess in needs, excess in confusion, excess in some sort of destruction, stakeholders who are participating, people who are affected, money, etc. So it causes that oft-used term, the fog of war. And with that, I think you'll see a greater desire in people to understand, because the uncertainty is unsettling and they're trying to grasp what that means for not only them, either like in this crisis professionally, but personally. So that's why you see such a clamoring of need for information. It's definitely why you're starting to see that resurgence in interest in local news media. So, so that's one of the biggest drivers, is obviously just the need for information. It's simple, at the end of the day, simple supply and demand. Demand is high, need is high, and our supply is trying to account for that. So, and of course, with anything in media, timeliness. Timing is absolutely everything. And that's not necessarily on like a particular scoop that we want to break news. That's important too. But also if something comes out and there's coverage that you have related to that story, that's another opportunity for us. So I'll give you an example. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I apologize, time, as you all know, is becoming hard to keep track of. But when the first announcements of exposures at meat processing plants occurred, we had some coverage around what was going on with food supply issues and what farmers were doing with excess capacity. So again, we didn't bring the scoop on the meat processing plant, but we had a story that was incredibly timely and related to another big story that day. So again, timing is everything. And then last but certainly not least is just accountability. With all this excess infusion of programming and resources and services, et cetera, there is a desire to kind of know is that being responsibly executed, what's going on in that. And so that's another component that I think drives all when you're thinking about the media in environment terms. And you can hit next again. Great, thank you. So, but I think how it all manifests itself, even if we have very similar environmental factors driving our engine at that moment, how it influences production is widely different and shaped on three key things. Audience, because that's central to everything we do, whether it's the longstanding audience we have, or the audience we are trying to reach or try to grow. That drives the focus on what stories we cover, what we follow up on. So for instance, this week has been very big on the conversation around reopening state government. So our coverage has started to kind of look at some of the implications of reopening, whether it's some of the intergovernmental issues between state and local governments, or some of the other economic implications, et cetera, et cetera. So the other piece of this is the angle. We sometimes stories will have very similar components to it, but the angle is obviously going to be very different and unique, and that's obviously shaped by audience. Like last week, one of our reporters wrote about low quantity supplies at food pantries, and how governors, particularly, I know we spotlighted California and Oregon in that one, we're trying to assist with that low quantity. And another publication took very similar, talked about the same exact issue, actually used the same examples as well, but took it from more of the business end, and how the food biz industry is really trying to evolve on the fly. So same general idea, different vantage points. And then of course it's got to be attention grabbing, because a story is only as good as who sees it. So that's the other piece to the pie of our motivating factors. So next slide.
And Alisha, I think Monica had her hand raised.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I have so many screens open, so I cannot see.
Oh, that was just when you asked if we knew who you were. I'm good.
Oh, okay, great.
Thank you.
Awesome. And you can hit next again, Christy. So why should you connect? You all are very busy. And you also all have, as I heard, different ways of how it works in times of disaster. So some of this may apply, some of it doesn't, but some of it is about context setting. I'm not necessarily an expert in any one thing except in state and local government. So when I'm writing a piece, for instance, I'm writing a piece right now on small businesses. Me going out to someone who's a SBA, a small business administrator, or a think tank, et cetera, it's to them to give me that insights into the fuller picture. And so you all are the type of people who give us that context and help us make sure that whatever analysis we're coming to, it's bounded in fact from people who have that lived experience. And then again, not a shocker, amplifying. It's the ability to enhance that message to a much more wider audience than you probably could from just using your own, I guess, communication channels. And then it's an opportunity to be an influencer, which is to shape the discussion. And I think also that's not just for one discussion, that's for any future discussion. It's an opportunity to go back to an individual. For instance, if I've worked with someone before and they've given me great stuff, I'm going to go back to them. So that's some of the things that would make it be helpful for you all to connect. And then you can hit next again. And how you connect, I think, is a really crux of the issue. And before even doing that, I kind of think of it like, ask yourself questions, because I get pitches all the time on what's a good story or things of that nature. And I've often found that it's not always well thought out, the pitch, to think about why my readers would like that, what angle it's going to work for the publication and the audience that we serve, and is it attention grabbing, or is there a way to make it attention grabbing? So I think when you ask just these 5 questions, and it's just the basic who, what, when, where, and why, that'll make the pitch so much more stronger. And not only will it make the pitch so much stronger, but I think it also helps you kind of think about the roadmap about exactly where you want to engage, whether it's locally, maybe it's something that's more regional, maybe it's a outlet that's more national, like myself, and what mode you think is best. Is it an op-ed? Is it an interview, et cetera, et cetera? So that is just, I think, some framing that is helpful in terms of when you decide to make those connections. Next slide. So I'm going to begin to wrap this up because, like I said, I don't want to talk at you. I want to talk with you. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the '92 Disney musical Newsies. It's one of my favorite childhood movies, and maybe subconsciously is why I'm very excited to be in media now. But probably one of the most cited phrases, like, headlines don't sell papes, Newsies sell papes. But the next line that Christian Bale says is, "We're what holds this town together, and without us, nobody knows nothing." And I bring all this up to say that I think sometimes, it can be be a little daunting to engage with media. It may not feel the most comfortable, but I think what's important to know is just kind of where we are coming from, and that while, you know, we may not be the paper boys of the 19th, 20th, early 20th century, Newsy still exists in me and reporters and all the people who help us create the product that connects people to the information they need and want. And at the end of the day, especially speaking from Route 50, all we're about is connecting. It's connecting, whether it's connecting one state to another about a promising practice, or one discipline to another about something that they may never thought the two of them had any connection about. So that's really it for me. I'd like to just transition us more to that interactive discussion. I can open the floor up for any questions that may have come up in that, or we can just go ahead and start having a more informal chat. So any questions to start?
Yeah, this is Caleb. So from a reporter's perspective then, during, obviously, you know, during a time of emergency like this, you have a lot of news stories to cover. And I assume you're understanding that, you know, from our perspective, we are scrambling as well. So, you know, everybody's pretty busy during these times. What is it that, what expectations do you have of us as communications professionals when you reach out? Is during these sort of times, are you understanding of the fact that it may take us 2 or 3 days to get back to you, and normal times would take us, you know, 2 hours to get back to you?
Yeah, no, I think the most important thing is definitely just to be upfront and honest. I think I was, as Monica was saying that earlier about the relationship with her reporters and not being able to do that. I think we recognize that. I remember a couple weeks ago this happened to me. I was thinking about a new piece and was doing pre-conceptualizing, and they just couldn't get back to me. And I was just like, okay, that's just the world that we live in. And sometimes that'll work. It depends on the piece. If it's something super immediate, I think sometimes for us, we do have a little bit more flexibility than, say, probably more of your major outlets, who obviously are really about getting that, like that breaking news scoop. Not that we're not about it, we are, but it's not in the same fashion. And so if it's going to take you a couple days, that's something we definitely can consider. Now, that may mean we go somewhere else as well, but I feel like at the end of the day, it's just better to be upfront and honest. And it's not necessarily going to mean we wouldn't go back to you in the future, especially if you're somebody we've been working with for quite some time. Other questions?
This is Courtney from Kansas. I actually wouldn't mind hearing from Monica, being in one of the largest media markets in the entire country, how California is prioritizing, I guess, their media requests, and who you were able to answer and how you are juggling all that. Because it's not easy.
I don't know how much help I'm going to be, because for this particular issue, we haven't been able to respond to anybody. And it's been a nightmare to me, because that's like the opposite of what my job's supposed to be. Every single thing has to go up through the Joint Information Center. It doesn't matter if it's a small thing, a big thing, if it even deals with us and we want to pass it off to someone. We can't even make those decisions. We have to have the Joint Information Center make those decisions, because there are so many departments working together throughout the state. I may only have a fraction of the information and not realize it, and it could totally change the whole story because I don't know the rest of the information. So that's why they're having us run everything up. And really, I don't know what gets answered unless they come back to me and ask me to provide the answer, which I think maybe I know I said I haven't responded to anything, but I think in the very beginning, I maybe had 1 or 2 responses before we knew how big this was going to get. But now it all comes out of the Joint Information Center or the governor's office. What usually happens is if they are getting multiple inquiries on the same thing, they will kind of lump that together and have our governor talk about it at a press conference. I'm not sure how other states' governor press conferences go, but we do actually allow reporter questions during those press conferences live. And so he on Right now, I'd say the last probably 2 or 3 weeks, the majority of inquiries coming in are actually Public Records Act requests. And we can't just provide information right away. And with us, because the majority of the contracts are going through the Office of Emergency Services, again, it's a multiple or multi-department working situation. So we're not really able to, again, even we can't respond on our own for even the PRAs because it's just everybody's working together. We've been making a lot of spreadsheets just to track everything with dates on them so we know when the reporters reached out, if and when we have said anything back to the reporter, when we sent it up to the Joint Information Center. And in my department, we are very good about checking in every, I'd say 3 days or so, at maximum every week, saying, hey, we have not gone back to this reporter. What can we say? And we just kind of put a fire under them. And it's kind of frustrating because we know how busy they are. But again, we want to help reporters get their stories out. I've always been in the mindset that we work together. I know there are some state positions where they think it's us against the media, and I try to break that because it's not. We're on the same team. We're all trying to get the same, we're trying to get info out to people so they have the right information. So this has been kind of like a very interesting and challenging exercise, I guess. But really, it's just keeping an eye on all the stuff coming in, keeping track of it, and just going after the top and saying, hey, we've got to get back to them. There have been some reporters who have gone forward with their stories saying that we didn't get back to them. I don't like doing that. I'm sure the reporters don't like that, but it's just they have to get their story out, whether we're able to get back to them or not. Luckily, there have been a few stories where they've done that, and then the Joint Information Center is like, oh, sorry, and then they'll come back and give us info, and then we can go back, give them, and say, if you want to update your story, here's some information. That's been kind of rare at the moment, but it really is just, it's one single place that's making the decisions on what's getting out to the media, and so it's been really squeezed in like a funnel kind of thing. So I know that's not much help, but that's just the experience I'm going through right now.
Monica, I'm curious, are you kind of, not that, I mean, knowing that we have almost only exclusively been covering coronavirus related topics right now, but is there any, are you completely unable to answer anything, or is there like room for you to talk about other issues that maybe don't necessarily touch coronavirus? And I bring that up in the sense of like, are there other things that you have the opportunity to offer to your usual contacts?
Yes and no. The few inquiries that had come in that we thought weren't coronavirus related ended up being coronavirus related, and kind of got our hands slapped. But we didn't know it was related to that. It was just something like something way out in the blue that they could connect that we didn't see that connection. But really, I'd say 99% of what's coming in is coronavirus related, because that's at DGS. I don't want to say that we're at a standstill and only working on COVID, but I'd say the majority of our projects are kind of on hold while that's happening. With that said, we've had a few come in. The ones that we absolutely do not have anything to do with COVID, we have been responding to those as normal, but barely anything has come in that isn't related to COVID.
Right. But it's something, right? I guess is at the end of the day. Any other questions for me or for each other?
Alisha, I think that's also a good question that we've gotten of other people of, are you putting out all your communications or your Twitters or your LinkedIn? Is it all related to this? Are you doing anything else additional? I think someone raised their hands that they did something for Administrative Professionals Day, kind of the balance of how much is related to COVID versus how much is related to other communications and PR. Because I know some of you also wear that hat where you're in charge of your Twitter handles or your LinkedIn.
Yeah, we have. I mean, I think kind of like what Monica said, it's probably 99% coronavirus. Yeah. But every week we still have, particularly earlier on, we were writing some things that had nothing to do with coronavirus, like a few laws that had been passing. Since some legislatures were still conducting business, we are still reporting on that. I'm trying to think if we had anything specifically this week. And I can also say since I do contributed content, some of our op-eds have been not related to coronavirus. So that's still a place that we have the ability to. I will also say, if looking more broadly to just not our own brand, I think for Route 50, it's a little harder because we are covering the folks who are the responders to kind of give real estate to something else. Not, again, we will, but I have noticed, for instance, some of our folks from Defense One and Government Exec and NextGov, they've been able to do a little bit more that's not just this. And I imagine at some point we also will start to make more of a transition. We'll still be covering it very heavily, but I think there's still going to be, especially if which legislatures are still operating or whatnot, even if remotely, if things come up, we will definitely cover it if that is something within the main topic areas we cover.
Yeah, what about other people on the call? Are you guys putting out other content on your channels, or is it all related to this?
So this is Caleb. I'm the one who raised my hand. We did for Administrative Professionals Day. It was kind of awkward because we put together a video. We recorded it. We're using Microsoft Teams, and recorded a Teams video with each individual of our senior leadership saying thank you. And the day, well, so that was yesterday, right? It was Administrative Professionals Day. The same day we announced layoffs taking place in state government. So we peeled back. We still posted the video on our intranet. And then we just had managers, sent it to managers and said, hey, please share this with your administrative professionals individually, but we're not going to do a mass email on it. So we've been trying to do that. We also have done Teams live meetings with our staff. So we have about 2,800 employees. And so we've done those with our director. And last week we tried to make it a little more fun, ripping off John Krasinski, and we did a little Some Good News segment. And it was all about COVID related stuff, but it was like employees that had been sewing masks, or someone took a care package to their local post office, and things like that weren't work related, just to try and keep some sense of togetherness with everybody and a little bit of normalcy. And it, those things have gone over pretty well. It's difficult to find the time to do those, but we are trying to be mindful. I'm lucky enough that I have someone on my staff who's dedicated to our internal communications. So she keeps, an eye out for those opportunities.
And Caleb, you filmed that using Microsoft Teams?
Yes. So if you use Teams Live, you can have a producer, and then you can choose what is showing on camera at any given time, whether it's sharing a screen or one individual person. So we just lined up all like 9 leaders and had them, we had a script. And so they each just filmed one line, thank you for what you do. You really make a difference. And so we just had each one come on and say their line 3 times. And then our video person cut them up. And, it was authentic looking, because some of them, like my video probably doesn't look great right now because my laptop, camera is not all that great. And some people had poor internet connections, so it was a little grainy and different things. But I think it was authentic. Now, I don't know how many people actually saw it because we didn't really push it out like we wanted to, but.
Yeah, anyone else, or is that kind of the silence of, all right, we are 100% focused on what's going on?
Ours has really been what's going on, but also trying to add in those personal stories. So we do a monthly newsletter to all of our employees. And so we've added in things about working from home, how to make it easier, resources regarding how to keep your sanity while working from home, and trying to crisis school, homeschool your children because Kansas's schools are closed for the year. Stories about some of our employees that are making masks, stories about some of our employees that are in our cleaning crews that have remained on campus and cleaning buildings and things like that. So anything that we can try to give some sort of personal touch has been helpful. And then our secretary has been doing weekly calls with all staff at once. We've been using Teams as well. I've been pleased with it so far. It has some limitations, but it's been pretty good. She's set up calls and she's been taking any question and every question. And the best part is, like, she's not all dressed up and fancy on the Teams calls. Like, she's got her Chiefs baseball cap on because she hasn't gotten her hair done for a month and a half. So it's just shows that we really are all experiencing the same thing, and it's just different for everybody a little bit.
What other questions? I don't know, Alicia, do you have any questions for the group of maybe they can talk through what going through when they're working with the media, or do they have any questions of how, I know before this all happened, one of the things we were talking about with this group is the administrative functions aren't always the things that are covered in the media. So how to highlight stories around some of the administrative functions. So I wonder to know.
Yeah,
now, but any thoughts?
No, but I think actually, again, I can only speak for Route 50. I actually think that's some of the things that we actually do want to give insights to, and just how that's actually working. I know I find myself often on a piece being like, wait, that I just want to go a little bit deeper in the reporting and really just make sure that we're kind of really contextualizing how it actually works in practice, particularly
I don't know which one it is.
particularly if there are different approaches going on. So I really actually think it's something we actually are interested in seeing. And it's interesting you mentioned about things that were on the plate beforehand, because at some point these things are going to come back and there's still going to be issues, because I think it's true. Yeah, it feels like everything else is on pause. And I can even speak from a contributed content perspective. There's some pieces that have just been, that were done at the end of early March, but now they've been on hold because it's we don't want to, some of these would probably just get lost in the shuffle a little. But I think that's actually a really also interesting mindset to think about. What's your proactive stance? Obviously, we're going to be through this crisis for a while, but I also don't know if we can just have I don't think we can just have sustained coronavirus coverage, really. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think, especially for us, we've talked about it at some point, we'll probably start adding a few more that are not just that. So I think it's something to maybe, obviously, to go back to and think about what this world is, but it's also a way to build around, I guess, a strategy around what you want to do next.
Well, for example, and this is how I think how times have changed. We worked a couple of years ago, 2 years on a piece around procurement, and I couldn't get anyone to talk about procurement 2 years ago, and now it's the hottest topic in government functions. So
exactly.
It's fascinating, some of the administrative functions that are being picked up national media. But for example, if they wanted to later, if there's a story, something really awesome happened in Michigan or California around a government facilities innovation, how would they talk to it? You guys probably have great local channels, but how would they talk to Route 50?
On the facility, well, it's kind of, at the end of the day, that's got to be something that's not super specific to that one state or that locality. It's got to be something that relates to something in the future. I think, actually, I think I was on a conversation with Pam yesterday where she was bringing this up about how the workforce changes and what does that mean for facilities, and is that a revenue generator? So something like that would be something that we would definitely, of course, want to cover, because it's like, oh, that's an outlier idea that other people may want to pick up. So if it's an idea that can be replicated, I think at its core is really the things that will get it more notoriety among our reporters. And we're a small team too, so some of that is part of it. That's also why we draw on op-eds from time to time as well, so we can still infuse some of those other ideas into the publication.
And I know sometimes we're an intermediary when someone's looking for, hey, we're writing a story on X, what states can I interview that are doing amazing on this? And so sometimes that's a way to kind of help connect the two dots.
Yeah, I do that a lot for my pieces. I start with associations first, to kind of give me the nationals perspective a little bit, but then also to introduce me to whoever is one of their members or someone on their staff. So we definitely leverage the associations to help us do that. And we also leverage the association resources. So like if you all put our report, we probably might cite that as something in terms of like if it's survey data or just something to just contextualize whatever that piece is. I think the only thing I wanted to ask other people is just like, what are some things that have been on their mind to like pitch, and if they just wanted any like immediate like feedback. Of course, my vantage point's a little bit different, but that's the only other thing I was wondering if people had any ideas around things that they've been thinking of.
So I hate to monopolize time, but I do.
Oh,
Now, one thing I've been thinking about lately is I've been trying to protect our people. They're 24/7, you know, and especially our procurement folks. And the questions we continue to get from reporters are pulling data. Well, every time that they have to step away from their job of trying to secure PPE, you know, it's taking away from maybe getting an extra mask for a hospital worker. And so I've been like pushing off some of that stuff as best as I can. But the story that I haven't seen told yet, you know, is the story of these procurement professionals themselves. There's a lot of, you know, stories out there about the unsung heroes, truck drivers, supermarket workers, and rightly so. But I think these government, especially state government purchasing professionals, are working 24/7, in many cases in an environment that they had not had to work in before. As far as we didn't buy a lot of medical equipment before this pandemic came down. So they're dealing with new vendors, new partnerships. And I'm sure the story that's been told a number of times is that there's, you know, a lot of potential unscrupulous brokers out there that they have to wade through. But you don't want to give up on any lead that may end up bearing some fruit, because we need everything we can get right now. And it's the people actually doing that work. You know, we made a big deal here because we gave them Easter off. And when we said we gave them Easter off, it was more like, well, keep your phone next to you. I mean, they are working constantly. So that's a story, I think, and NASCA may even be able to help pitch that to some as well. But, you know, that without the political angle, because every time we get the question right now, it's, well, is the federal government stealing stuff from you? We don't care. We don't care about politics right now. You know, our governor has been the same way, even though she's kind of been out in front and had some Twitter battles with, you know, the president a few times. But, you know, for the most part, every time I get the question, it's more they want to talk about, well, who's screwing you over? I'd love to get the story out there about the work these people are doing.
Yeah, and I think that's awesome. That's totally exactly what a new angle. Workforce is huge right now. We have definitely, to your point, we've done pieces on the grocery store workers. We've done, I think, something on food bank workers and things like that. So any way that like that comes across that's different, especially procurement, because like Jamie said, it is a hot topic, but and we're all kind of reporting on it the same. I feel like we keep talking about PPE, but we're talking about it in a different way. And one other thing I'll say about Route 50 is we actually, for the most part, and this is almost entirely across government exec, we don't really care about the politics as much, unless it has some sort of implication on policy. We are really focused more on like the policy, the outcomes, et cetera. So for us, it's literally like, and again, understanding like what's going through. So in Route 50's world, it's just kind of interesting to see where's procurement professionals, how are they feeling, what are they doing, like what are some of the not just the, like you mentioned, the I can't get this kind of challenges, but what's maybe like those second or third order, or at this point we're at like the 7th, 8th, and 9th, 10th order of things. So something of like that I think is really interesting to spotlight, especially if there's something they're seeing that's about to come on that no one has really not reported on, I think is really key. I'm working on another piece right now, and someone said something, it's about small business, that no one else had said, and I'm like, that's going in the piece. So I think that's definitely the right approach.
I think one of the things that we've seen also from here in terms of talking about the workforce that hasn't been talked about, and I'm sure you guys have all experienced it in your state, is the amazing things that all of our state IT people have done to take a workforce that was 90% in office and turn them to a 90% remote in a matter of 3 weeks or less has been outstanding. From the same perspective, everybody's Department of Labor having to completely rewrite the unemployment distribution system in order to meet all these federal guidelines that came out and got guidance, I think, last week.
Yeah, Courtney, that last piece in particular about just like, I guess, basically changing your hard-coded systems and whatnot, I think is really, I think I've seen like sentences related to that, but I don't think anyone has delved in deep to this. And I originally was thinking or about doing there was a pitch made to me about a contributing piece that just never worked out. And it was exactly that. I'm like, that's really interesting. So now, earlier this week, we did a few retrospective pieces. So I think something like that is a really good look back of like, how did they even do this sort of quick. Flexible, nimble. It also just speaks to, wow, government can be flexible when it needs to be, kind of thing.
Yeah, I know our team has been working 24/7 for the past 2 to 3 weeks, just trying to recode everything that came through from the federal packages. I mean, I think our Department of Labor secretary went through it with our Ways and Means Committee this morning, and she was telling about the 6 different things that had to be completely rewritten in their system, and just rewriting all this custom code for things that have never ever existed in our unemployment world has been pretty impressive to watch, and how everybody's been working together for it.
I know we're coming up close to, it's 3, so unless anything else, I guess, Christy, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, this has been a fantastic conversation. I'm glad that everybody's had some time to kind of talk through these things and kind of take each other's brains a little bit. Kind of moving forward, I will be kind of just posting a quick thing in the Collaborate community with the PIO group, and I'll just make sure that everybody that's on this call is all the state members are in that group moving forward. But if you have any other resources that you need, kind of relating to the communication of your state, or have any other ideas that you'd like to share, anything, we'll do that in that community, and I will reach out to you all and give you also Alicia's email address again. I was on that last slide there, but in case anybody wants to reach out to her with any follow-up questions as well. But I just want to thank everybody so much for their time and your participation. You guys have been great. And with that, unless anybody has, unless Pam or Jamie or anybody else has anything they want to say real quick, I think we're good to sign off.
Yeah, no, thank you. I kind of liked what Caleb said. It is nice to kind of see some new faces, and I'm sure we've seen all the same people, but it's great to hear your all story. And if there's anything that NASCA can do to help your secretary, the departments of administration in the future, please remember us to help tell your story to the national media. So like Alisha says, we also get questions of who's doing this really well, or who should we talk to? And we only know what to share with them and what's shared with us. So if there's anything we can help you with, please feel free to reach out.
Yeah, and thanks, Alisha, so much for being with us today. We really appreciate your comments.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Everybody.